Frostpunk was free on the Epic Game Store the other week, along with anime Zelda. I needed something to play, and I'm not playing this, so Frostpunk it is. Before I talk about anything else, I just want to say, this game is stressful, man. Nothing ever goes right, and when it does, it won't be going right for long. This is not satisfactory. Things happen, like everyone dying of a coal mine collapse or something. This is not a complaint. In fact, I have no complaints about this game. I know I may sound negative, but I like all the mechanics. I'm a masochist. This is a great game. I've played the main campaign, which took me 5 hours of total playtime to beat after 2 failures, and took a bit over 3 hours and a stressful morning. And it was close! One more day and I would have lost it. Both the game and my sanity. It's interesting though. It throws together a bunch of concepts that somehow work together. It's a city building game designed around keeping people warm, healthy, and not starving. As long as you maintain these 3 things, you should be good. The problem is maintaining these things. This is your health bar. You want this as low as possible. Once it fills, a rebellion springs up and everyone comes together to overthrow you. This is also your health bar. You want this high, or people lose all hope and you lose. With the warmth, you basically have a zone to build things in, or your people get sick, requiring them to be absent from their job until cured, or even worse, frostbitten. I know I said this is your health bar, but so is coal. I'm sure you've noticed the big generator in the middle by now. You need to fuel this to warm your people. You can increase its efficiency, which you need to do if you want to survive colder temperatures, doubling coal consumption each time you do so. Speaking of temperatures, it gets cold. Negative 150 degrees Celsius is the lowest, as far as I know. Everything you do with heat requires coal. You gotta do everything you can to keep your people warm. At negative 120 degrees, you have to use everything the game has to keep people in a chilly state. And there's nothing you can do for negative 150, I think. Don't quote me on that. This is not a bad thing, mind you. It's a very interesting mechanic. I mentioned laws before. Wait, no I didn't. There are laws, and this is the skill tree of the game. You start with one tree allowing for fun things like a strip club and child labor. About a third through, you get the choice of becoming North Korea or the Spanish Inquisition. What fun. You can just not sign that law, but it makes sense to do so, as both the laws remove hope entirely, replacing it with either obedience or faith that cannot diminish. But I feel like the game is far more fun if you take morals into account. At one point, a poet killed himself after writing about how all hope is lost. I could burn his life's work and tell people that he died because he was having so much fun. Or I could not do that. Burning the poetry has no downside at all, but it didn't feel right, so I didn't. It's added a whole nother layer on an emotional level. There is also a tech tree. This is where you get all the good stuff. Everything important is in the tech tree. Each tech requires engineers to study for a time, as well as resources. It can be basic upgrades or new buildings entirely, most of which are vital. It allows for things like actual automation, using automatons. You get special buildings that can only be placed in certain areas, most of which are quite expensive, requiring a steam core. Speaking of which, steam cores were a great addition to the game. You can't produce them, so the only way to get them is to scout out locations. You can unlock scouting in the tech tree, and you can send scouts on expeditions to different landmarks. Sometimes the reward is survivors, sometimes it's resources, but the real reason you want to explore is the steam cores. You can't do anything substantial without them. They are a very limited resource. Even if you rush for Tesla City, a place with infinite steam cores, you can only get 1 a day. At most you can get 15 from Tesla City, and I can imagine that's very hard. The main game is kinda like FTL, in that everything you do until the final part is preparing for the final part. It's also similar that it's still hard to make it to the final part. I could imagine it's quite annoying to die in the final stretch, as it is in FTL, because then your 3 hours of progress is lost. You can save your game halfway. I think the game would be better if it didn't have saves you could load after dying. Unlike you idiots, I want to be punished really hard. I love it. Luckily, I don't have to save my progress. But I wish they didn't add it in, because I could imagine you could easily just, go back a couple days and make better decisions. And where's the fun in that? I know some plebs are gonna do it because they actually have a life and things to do. The city building aspects are cool. It's interesting limiting yourself to a space so you don't run out of coal. If you're worried about replayability, don't be. There's like a whole slider system for the scenario, and there's 3 extra free scenarios that change things up. They do, they really do. Like this one's about managing tons and tons of people. This one's about managing a bunch of automatons. And then you got the last autumn and the other thing. Those you have to spend money for, so I didn't do that. But I have heard the last autumn really changes things up. Like there's new architecture, new buildings and everything. So if you like the game, there's more to play. Another thing, the music. Oh my god, it is good music. It is such good music. It adds so much suspense. It's so good that it might be my second favorite OST of any video game. First being Hyper Light Drifter. I've recorded this last part so many times, I cannot decide whether to put it in B tier or A tier. And I've come to the decision, I'm going to put it in B tier. There's nothing great about the game, and there's nothing bad about the game. You know, B tier is good games, A tier is great games, C tier is not at all notable games. Unlike Alien Isolation, that has like the alien and things, nothing is great. Everything's just good. And granted, everything is good. There is nothing bad about this game that I can think of. The OST, it slaps, it's great. But the magic kind of wears off after you listen to it a couple times. It's $30 at its full price. You might want to wait till it's on sale. But if money isn't a big problem and you have like a full paying job, it's probably worth your money. But if you're a 14-year-old like me and you don't got a job and stuff, no, not really, no. Just wait till it's on sale though. You should play it. But play Hyper Light Drifter first. Outro time. You better subscribe. If you have any advice, I would love to hear it. If you do have advice, please give a recommendation. I've got a little smooth brain, okay?